Okay. You know, it seems to be almost a theme with this show. Hold on. Okay, yeah, we are having all kinds of technical issues involving Skype and
Okay.
call recorder and everything else.
Internets and yeah.
Oh man. So, but we're still here. We are still here, no matter how much you may wish we weren't. And just to see how well this is going to work, it's not. It didn't work. So I have to see if I can add you here on the fly, Warren,
Okay.
so that people can see you. Let's see. No, it doesn't like that. Let's try this. Skype new. We're gonna call you Skype new. How does that sound? And but you know what? That's not gonna work because I didn't do it right. So I have to get rid of it. Isn't this fascinating? I mean, let me just say that for fortunately only Brian Monroe. Oh no, Steve Hammond and Eric Diaz are also here. So just bear with us here, guys. We're doing what we can. Let's see. Will Skype 2 work? Yes, there he is. Okay, they can see you.
Hey,
I just have to adjust it a little bit.
I think we have internet too.
And center you up.
Okay.
If I go to this.
Yeah.
So this is the Mac, of course, Mac to the Future livecast with all of our fun times. It was better without Guy's voice. Thank you, Steve. I appreciate that. I guess it usually is better without my voice, so I can just pantomime, the whole time that I'm here on the screen, and everyone will understand me. Let's just jump right into. Actually, oh my goodness. There is someone requesting a call in. I believe that's Brian Monroe. Brian, hold on a second. We're not taking calls. Actually, they didn't hear me earlier when I said don't call in yet. Is what happened.
We're on maximum bandwidth, and it's like a fly lands. If a fly lands on something, we're gonna pop.
We are having all kinds of fun things tonight. Okay, well, let's just jump right into it. First thing I wanted to talk about tonight, Warren. Well, number one, welcome to 2018. I hope you had a great New Year's, and I hope that everyone who's watching tonight had a great New Year's. It is cold as hell here right now, and we're expecting snow. I live in Northern Virginia. We're expecting snow sometime after midnight tonight, and I guess it's going to hit you guys a couple hours after that.
Yep.
So fun. I don't know if I'll be going to work tomorrow.
It's called the bomb snowstorm. Or something.
If I don't go to work tomorrow, that'll give me more time to try to figure out again what the problem is with all of this stuff. Anyway, first thing I wanted to talk about tonight was a story that I read via ZDNet, and ZDNet seems to think that 2018 would be a really, really good time to spin the Mac computer biz off on its own. They speak about all the usual stuff. Apple doesn't pay as much attention to the Mac as they should, which I agree with. Lack of significant updates beyond laptops and the iMac Pro, which I think we can also agree with. And that in comparison, even Apple at number 5 in volume sales, they make pretty good bank as compared to the larger sales numbers of all of the other computer makers, especially in profit margins, since Apple has like the highest profit margins in the world when it seems to come to computer electronics and actually personal electronics at all. Where this kind of falls apart, Warren, in my opinion, is the closeness in operations between Mac OS and iOS. Now, assuming that Apple might do this, it would only make sense that Mac OS development would go along with it. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, this is not the first time I've heard this.
Sure.
this, I think last year they were talking, there was another article about it too, but the development of Mac OS and iOS should be probably, if we love Macs and we all love Macs, we're all going to say it should be separate because we want it to be its own thing. We fear the universal app. We see what happened with Windows and how it failed, and we're like, you're not doing that to the Mac operating system. Blah blah blah. Power users, iOS type Mac will never be strong enough for me. Things like that. So, as a true Apple Mac fan, I think we're all going to pretty much say we want the Mac operating system to be its own thing forever, and have a dedicated development team to do that. iOS is a moneymaker, and they are not going to let that go either. So they're going to continue doing that as well. And if Apple's spending more resources to work on iOS than Mac, it's a problem for people who likes Mac.
Well, do you think it makes any sense at all for them to spin the Mac off as a separate company? Because I have to be honest, I really don't. And I'll tell you why, is that the interconnectivity that we're seeing and that they're developing between the Mac OS and iOS really can only take place because they're basically in-house with the same company. You have the same engineering groups that are working on the mobile side as they are on the desktop side, and the features that they're bringing out for both operating systems. If the Mac was spun off as its own company, or however you want to describe that, I don't think that you would have the closeness of iOS and Mac OS in the ways that we've come to appreciate that you would see if they actually did spin it off.
Right, and that's definitely one part of it. The benefits, if they did do something like that, which I don't think they're going to do either. In fact, I don't think Apple's, as far as I know, in recent history, at least the last few years, have spun off any of their products as a separate company.
They have actually because FileMaker Pro was part of Apple. That got spun off into its own company.
A long time ago. I mean that was.
Well, yeah, it hasn't been in recent.
Yeah, I'm talking since they've been really flying with iOS and all that. They're gobbling up companies, but they're not spinning them off like Google, creating this whole alphabet, and spinning off departments and companies or whatever they call it. So I don't see them doing it because they haven't been doing it. They want to be one giant company.
We have some comments in the room. Tim Robertson, hey Tim, says no, not at all. Todd Hensley says that he thinks it's a terrible idea. Brian Monroe says that Apple is not going to spin off the Macintosh as its own company, while FileMaker was spun off as that made sense. Mac OS and the Macintosh is key for their success, and I wouldn't disagree with that.
Right. So the pro arguments, I think, would be if Apple could spin off a company that they oversaw and kept an eye on. The pro argument would be, hey, people could stop complaining about Apple pricing be so high on their laptops and desktops.
Just because they spun it off as a different company doesn't necessarily mean that the prices of their computers would come down.
If they spin it off as a different company, there would be more of an expectation for more recent parts quicker. There's a reason for it. We would get, the Coffee Lake or whatever the next Lake processor coming out when it comes out.
Well, that's not right now. Something we're going to talk about later. That's not necessarily a good idea either.
Well, that's a complaint. So what are the biggest complaints about Mac hardware, right? So the biggest complaint about Mac hardware is going to be price, options, choice of models, and slightly outdated hardware. Maybe people don't like the new designs, the keyboard, things like that. So if they have it spun into their own thing, hopefully that company would need to survive by listening to the consumer complaints a little bit more, because they don't have iOS to fall back on.
Well, they did something kind of similar back in the 90s with the clone makers, which I've gone on ad nauseum and won't go into tonight. But I just can't see Apple spin. I mean, the Mac, and if you get to the bottom line, the Mac is making about 25 to 30% of total revenue and profits for Apple, and that's a big chunk of money. I mean, do you really want to spin that off into to something that you may or may not be able to have the type of control that you did before?
It's going to come down to control, and that's what it's going to come down to.
Well, that's something that Apple is notoriously tight-fisted about, as far as
right.
Let's see if we can get. I think this is Brian Monroe. Let's see if I can get him in. Brian, are you there? Brian?
Hey.
Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you. You can hear me, which is good.
I'm stunned. This is like the first thing that's kind of worked tonight without any fuss or muss. And of course, oddly enough, it would be Xenocast, which has been notoriously not great for the ever. So anyway,
yes.
Brian, what real quick, because we have to move on to the next topic. What's your opinion on this?
About the spinning off the Mac business, anyways? You mean?
Yeah.
Business?
Yep.
It's stupid. I'm sorry. I just think this is more Wall Street nonsense talk. Just like I'm sure you're going to talk about Netflix or maybe about this Intel supposed bug and everything. So,
as a matter of fact, those are two of the things that we're going to talk about tonight.
It's amazing how he knew that.
I know, he's psychic.
I did have a comment about both of those if I can, anyways. Basically, real quick.
Okay. Well, real quick.
The Netflix thing, basically, and you could whatever about that. To me, I realize that the investors want Apple to do something with their money, and now that the tax bill's gone through and looks like Apple's going to bring onshore more money, they're going to say, well, maybe you end up looking again in Netflix. That would get you a nice leverage play with Hollywood and, more of a long-term play and, really get you some legitimacy there. But I just think they aren't going to do it the same way where I don't believe they're going to buy a cell phone carrier or become an MVNO, which would be something logical for Apple to do as well.
Oh, don't forget about the Apple TV set.
Yeah, that's a long time ago. I think those rumors are over, basically. The other one, of course, is this silly Intel bug thing that apparently people are all freaking out about and everything else. And it looks like now good news, apparently, and you'll talk about it basically, but it's being already patched apparently. But, this idea of not updating because some supposed unknown, performance hits that people might have related to some silly rumors that somebody on Ars Technica posts up there and everything that pisses me off because I'm like, look, both Windows and Mac users are going to get this update unless you're just never going to update your system ever. And the only way around that would be to run a Linux kernel you built yourself, that somehow these people logically would think that they'd be able to build a better kernel than professional people that get paid big bucks, basically these large corporations, either Microsoft or Apple, to be able to build these systems and everything. It's ridiculous anyways. Do your updates. Life will be fun. The sky's not falling. So
I'll tell you one thing. The Power PC clones are laughing now. We don't have those Intel chips. Yeah.
All right, Brian.
I just wanted to get those things off my chest.
All right. Thanks a lot. Thanks for calling, Brian.
Thanks, guys. Cheers.
Okay. Speaking of what to talk about next was the rumors about Netflix. And then after this, we're going to take a little break. But as far as Netflix, this is another current rumor that Apple will buy Netflix to help shore up a potential video subscription service cable TV alternative that Apple seems to be headed for. And I don't think this is going to happen. Now, Apple is posed to bring back a significant chunk of their overseas profit under the 20% tax break that was recently passed. this could mean up to the neighborhood of 200 billion or so US dollars suddenly available to Apple to do with as they please. However, to buy Netflix would take a significant chunk of that money, and Apple is notorious for not spending big bucks on acquisitions. Sure, they could use the content deals that Netflix has, but those are fleeting and beholden to renegotiations with content copyright holders, which means that as those deals run out, the content copyright holders would be looking at Apple kinds of paydays for their content as compared to Netflix type paydays. Since Apple would have to pay those kinds of prices with or without Netflix, why bother? Now, the only thing that Netflix has that might be of interest would be their original content. And would that be worth the estimated $50 to $75 billion it would probably take to buy Netflix? The only reason I can see Apple buying Netflix would be to keep someone else from buying it.
If a company that's in the entertainment industry like that had the money, any one of them would buy Netflix. It's a business that's at its peak. It's it's a moneymaker.
Well, wait. When you say entertainment companies, what are you talking about, like Sony or Disney or something like that? Because remember, part of the reason why Netflix is able to get a lot of these content deals is that they aren't associated with Sony or Fox or Disney or some of these other companies. And the moment that they are, I can see rival companies saying, well, why are we going to be giving you our content for you to make money on when we could do that ourselves? I mean, essentially, that's what CBS did.
It's getting away from the content part of it, because that's only part of what's going on. You got the companies that are looking to provide content to people and looking for as many subscribers and as many devices to put them on. And that's what it's coming down to. And the lines are getting blurred. Apple's a hardware company too, and they have hardware that will run Netflix, and that's possibly why they want to have it under their control. For all we know, they're going to integrate it into a new Apple TV. Who knows? But the Netflix model right now with the original content, it's making money. People they always, as far as I know, they're always posting a profit, and it's if Apple could get more original content to it and not compete with them with their own Apple content that they're trying to do, then it's going to make money. Whether it makes the investment back, it's not going to make it back in years. It's going to take many years to get that money back. But I think eventually they just don't want to compete with Netflix at this point.
Well, yeah, but would Apple be able to keep all of those subscribers if they didn't have the content deals that Netflix has? If they didn't have a lot of the original content? Because I mean, like right now, some of the big original content that Netflix has is things like The Punisher and I didn't see it myself, but Iron Fist and some of the Marvel properties. If Apple buys Netflix, would Marvel Studios? Well, actually, you know what? They're owned by Disney, and Apple has a pretty good chunk of, not so much chunk of Disney, but there's a lot of ties there. But
we don't know if they're. I mean, we're making assumptions if they're going to lose those contracts. If Apple buys Netflix, does that mean the company that makes Stranger Things is going to say, we're not working with you, Apple, because of what?
Well, it always comes down to money.
Well, I mean, I'm sure Stranger Things and the Queen and all that, I'm sure they're making pretty good money, and they would probably love to be providing to Apple just as much as they would love to be providing to Netflix. They're going to get paid either way. I don't see companies leaving. I don't see production companies leaving. I see probably more coming in now that you have a bigger umbrella. I mean, if you look, what else is out there? Hulu has a couple of.
There's
productions.
There's a ton of companies that are putting out their own channels now. Basically, most of the major networks have their own channels.
They have their own channels, but I'm saying we're talking new services with their own production. So Netflix, Apple, Hulu. I can't think of any others out there other than the networks and HBO and all that. But those are the ones that are getting the new shows. So I think Apple's just trying to get rid of the competition.
Okay, is that worth over $50 billion to do so?
I think they would get their money back, at least.
Well, that's like 1/4 of their cash stash after taxes, if they brought it back, and that's assuming that they take their entire I'm not even sure what their holdings are overseas, but they would basically after taxes have somewhere in the neighborhood of $200 to $250 billion, and to just lop off $50 billion of that for something like Netflix, I just don't see Apple doing that.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money.
We got some comments about this. Here.
Oh yeah, Tim says that's not the point. Content is king, and nothing would change with Netflix if Apple was the power behind them. They would be hands off. Maybe. iTunes original content is dead on arrival. Well, they haven't actually, other than two really, really pathetic attempts, haven't really tried much with it.
But that's
creative
kind of
community loves Apple. Don't forget, nothing would change. I'm focusing on the wrong thing. It's about network traffic and customer. I've got to figure out a better way to do comments than having them way over here.
Well, we could. Yeah, you got to refresh. But Tim's, agreeing with kind of what I said. I mean, Netflix has content. Apple doesn't have content. I mean, the goal of any of these services now is to get as many people on as many devices and provide content that they can't get anywhere else. And that's the goal. And Apple is trying to achieve that. They want to get as many customers to pay them the $10 a month to watch, the Queen.
To watch the Queen?
Yeah, it's a show on Netflix.
Oh, okay.
It's a good show.
There's been a lot of content that I just haven't had time to watch lately.
Yeah, we binge a few. The Queen and Stranger Things is
Queen and Country. Okay. I don't know if there's any other comments because apparently my comments aren't refreshing as quickly as they probably should. After the break, anyone who'd like to call in and comment on what we've done so far or what we've talked about so far, the number is there on the top of the screen. Apparently, it's maybe working tonight. We don't really know. We won't know until somebody else tries to call. The only person who sees the work with so far is Brian Monroe. Anyway.
Maybe he might have a secret number we don't know about.
He may have a secret number that we don't know about. Everyone just hold on, and we're going to play a real quick ad here to try to get you to buy my silly book, and then we'll be right back.
This is Private Eye Macintosh, and I'm here to tell you about a book written about me and my search for the Maltese Cube. Yes, it's a fine book. I think you should get it. Quiet, you. It combines technology, Mac trivia, action, murder, suspense. Oh, just tell them where to get it. I'll get to that. romance, film noir detective fiction. I can't stand it anymore. It's called The Maltese Cube, and it was written by my Mac writer and podcaster Guy Searle. Find it on Amazon. It's only $2.99 and coming soon to the Apple's iBook store. Don't forget, it's The Maltese Cube and so inexpensive. You know you're not in it, right? I'm in the next one, right? Sure thing, Louie. You know, this could be the start of a beautiful friendship. Get The Maltese Cube on Amazon and soon in the iBook store.
Okay, and with that abrupt change, we are back. Again, if you would like to call us and comment on anything that we've talked about so far, our telephone number is 1-701-801-4367. Once you have connected, you just hit the 5 to request to talk, and it may or may not work. It's been kind of hit and miss for everyone except for Brian Monroe.
Secret line.
A secret line.
So wait, before you get started, I promised people, I promised somebody something. So I put the new beta on my iPhone today, and it's very, there's a very loud keyboard clicking now, and I told him I would demonstrate.
Okay.
Can you hear that?
Oh my God.
Isn't that crazy?
That is like super loud.
It is crazy. I mean,
and annoying.
After the beta, somebody said, you know what we need to do? We need to turn up the clicky sound.
Yeah, because that's what everybody wants. Is really loud emojis. Clicky sounds.
That was emojis.
Poop emojis.
Okay. I'm sorry. Emojis. Continue on.
Okay. The last thing that we were going to talk about tonight, and this is relatively recent as compared to the usual battery talk that seems to have dominated for the last couple of weeks. This seems to be the year, sort of, since this kind of jumps between 2017 and 2018, for big, huge corporations to make major blunders that could adversely affect the company for a very long time. Still a lot left in the dark concerning Intel's 10-year-old bug with their processors. But what we do know is that this is a serious security flaw in all Intel chips produced over the last 10 years, which allows desktop programs to read parts of the protected kernel memory, according to a report from the Register. This can include data like passwords, login keys, and other sensitive information. Other than the obvious security issue, what it may take to fix the problem could potentially slow down your computer by quite a lot. According to some sources, the only fix would be to isolate the kernel's memory. Now, I have no idea what a lot of this means. Isolate the kernel's memory from user and application processes with a practice called kernel page table isolation. Does that mean anything to you?
No. So when I saw the article this morning, I said what I always say: unless you're an expert in what they're talking about, don't jump to any kind of conclusions on it, because everybody's going to start going crazy with these articles, and just like you, I have no idea what the hell they're talking about. So when people read these articles, they see three things. They see massive security flaw, fix will slow down computers, everybody's at risk 10 years from the last 10 years. And that's all people saw. Everybody else just skimmed through everything else, and it went through one ear and the other ear. But from what I'm reading now is the Mac already has a fix coming. I'm sure Windows will too. And this is like the kind of the running joke of the Mac viruses and the malware. It's when you see people discovering them, it's like people in lab coats discovering a hole that nobody even knows about, or nothing even happened with it. And this is another one. If you read the article, it was discovered by Google, who had some kind of hacked their lab, their virus malware lab or whatever. So, there's a lot of smart people looking into this. And if anything, it's a good thing, to find out what it is before, it turns into something. So it will be fixed, and there'll be an update, and that will be the end of it. Just so everybody knows, it's supposedly ARM processors and Intel chips from the last 10 years. AMD at first was nobody was sure, but then AMD came out with a statement saying that we are not affected by that. And then, of course, I belong to a couple of Facebook groups. See, I had to wait 10 years, but see, I told you AMD is better. We need to go to AMD. Their day will come back, and of course, whoever has an AMD chip in their computer is, it's some beige box from 2002, and I'm sure it's not that good.
Well,
so,
not necessarily. I mean, the AMD chips are, in essence, x86 processors, multi-core, just like the Intel chips are. I mean, I couldn't say why one was affected and the other one wasn't.
According to AMD, they're not affected. Whatever they did differently, and I'm sure there's technical jargon in there. But
see, I would love to see Apple, if Apple was going to make a big acquisition, I would love to see them buy AMD and start putting AMD processors, since they're compatible with probably 90% or more of the existing Macintosh software. And I mean, just like they did with iPhones and iPads, where they basically designed their own ARM chips for them, design their own x86 chips for the Mac.
I don't think anybody wants to buy AMD at this point. I think the CEO just sold off the rest of his stock last week, from what I read too. It's not relevant anymore. Do you remember the AMD Intel wars 10 years ago, maybe?
Oh, longer than that.
Was it? It was probably around right when the Pentium probably came out, after the 486, I think, is when it started to come out then. And that was their chance. And for whatever reason, I think they had. It was an arms race. It was a speed race. One would release their chip. It was a little bit faster, and then the other one would come out. But AMD had the advantage of being cheaper. And I can't remember why it failed or why Intel came out on top, but I think the AMD had some compatibility issues with some of the computers.
Maybe, but I mean, couldn't it also have been along the lines of nobody ever got fired for buying IBM?
I don't know. I have no idea. I don't know what that means.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, let's throw in a cultural reference that the person I'm speaking to doesn't understand. Basically, what it means in essence is, you're a procurement officer for big company XYZ, and you need to make a decision on buying computers for however many people it is. You can spend a lot of time in researching and, well, let's do a comparison of this computer and that computer, or you can just go ahead and buy IBM because everyone knows the name and they'll be happy with it.
Right.
That's basically all that meant. So along those same lines, corporate America not buying into AMD, or the consumer market not buying into AMD, could just be a matter of, Intel is the safe choice. Intel is the processor that they know. Intel is the processor that they love. I mean, this is Mac and Windows all over again.
Yeah, no, I mean, we would have to go back into some of the history, but I don't know. They had a chance. They had their chance, and I don't think they're relevant anymore. But in any case, in this case, maybe if this bug is not fixable or does really slow down your machine and AMD's chip
isn't affected, right?
Who knows? 2 years from now, we might be seeing AMD relevant again.
Well, real quick, if anybody would like to comment on this, you can call us maybe 1-701-801-4367, then dial 5 to request to talk. You can try. No guarantee that it'll work, but yeah, this early in to something like this, where a major company is having a problem, we really don't know all of the facts yet, and whether or not this will be significant, we don't know. It may turn out that this is so bad that they're going to say, everybody go replace your computers right now, because the one you have is open to Russian hackers living in Tel Aviv or something. I mean, we won't really know until a little bit more time has gone past.
Yeah, and basically, if they fix it and the fix is a bad fix, then it will become more of an issue. But it's too soon. Nobody panic. It's fine.
Yeah. Tim says that AMD has bad power management,
I saw that.
i.e. not good for mobile processing. John Hono says, hey. John, hey. Okay. I guess that's going to kind of do it for the night. Sorry about all the technical issues earlier on. This is, I'm actually hoping that there's going to be a lot of snow so that I can work on this a little bit more tomorrow. If you'd like to get a hold of Mr. Sklar, you can almost always find him over there in the Mac to the Future Facebook group. And, of course, he is a regular contributor to mymac.com as Gaz and I continuously mispronounce his name over there in the mymac.com podcast. By the way, both Gaz and I love that audio, that little audio snippet you sent us, because every time you say, you have mispronounced my name for the last time, we both are just like, no, we really haven't. We're going to continue to mispronounce your name.
I gave you some fuel for that. So it's fun hearing my mispronounced name on the show. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, and we mix it up. We throw in different pronunciations, most of which are, make absolutely no sense. Anyway, if you would like to get a hold of me, you can reach me at guy@mttfgo.com. We have a Skype number. I swear to God we have a Skype number, which is 703-436-9501. You can call that number, and chances are I'll figure out some way to make it play right here on the show. No guarantees, because I can't guarantee that this will work next week. Any of this will work next week. So you got anything else there, Warren, before we head out?
No, just be safe. If you're on the East Coast, don't drive if you don't have to.
God damn it, it's been so freaking cold. I hate this cold weather. I want to live in Florida. Actually, I was going to say I want to live in Florida, but Florida is like in the 30s right now. It was snowing in Jacksonville.
In Gainesville up north, yep. So yeah, well, it was, we were getting 1 to 3 inches. I took a little nap, woke up, it was 3 to 6. So
yeah, the people that live in Ohio and Michigan, we tell them, we just got 1 to 3 inches, and they stare at us in disbelief that we would ever say anything that stupid.
Right.
Anyway,
all right.
that's going to do it for the night. Thanks to everyone who joined us and left all the great comments. We really do appreciate it, and we hopefully will see you next week. Bye.
See ya. comments.
Okay, we're back on again. This is after show stuff.
Hello.
Oh, so who was it? Was it Jason Domo was talking about when we were going to get Alex on the show?
So I guess I have to tell the story.
That's a never.
So I'll tell the story really fast.
Go ahead.
Because a lot of people don't know it. And I won't mention any real names, but there is a person out on Facebook who has when we were was that you right there?
No, I'm just shutting that down.
Okay. So when we were in the old group that we got kicked out of, he was in there with a couple other people. And basically
I got kicked out of that group too.
Yeah, we all did. But he was in there first, and he would continuously post the weirdest issues with his stuff. So like we're talking like dust under the lens of iPhones. We were talking about chargers catching fire all the time. And
constantly.
So, and it was like almost like clockwork. Every like 2 weeks he would do the same thing. And then he did the same thing with every other group out there. So he literally joined every Apple centric Facebook group, and every 2 weeks he would post the same thing. I have dust under my lens or something like that. So he's a weird dude. He likes me for some reason, I guess, because I'm.
Well, aren't you? You guys must live relatively close to one another.
So I live closer to Ed actually, but there's a mall called King of Prussia Mall, which is huge. It's like kind of the East Coast version of the Mall of America, right. I guess. And when my wife and I want to do more shopping, we'll go out there. This guy had said once that he goes there all the time. So I don't talk to him, but I went to the Apple store. My wife and I split up while she shopped and I shopped, and there he was. So I snapped a couple pictures of him. He saw me, I saw him. I didn't talk to him, and of course now it's a big joke of the group. So these Facebook groups are weird. There's a lot of normal people, but there's a lot of really not normal people. And this was one of the people that we weren't even sure kind of existed or not. Because I'm sure
wasn't there like rumors that you'd actually made him up for a while?
No, I didn't. No, I don't.
There was somebody that was connected in the Mac to the Future group where they were saying, well, you made him up. You're actually that person. You made a fake account or something along those lines. I don't remember who it was. Yeah,
we've accused other members of being that person or another kind of troll of the group. More of a joke of anything. But yeah, there's just be careful out there because you never know. I've met from the Facebook groups. I've met 3 people live in person, and the first one I met was Crazy Richard, and the second one was Crazy Alex. And Crazy Ed isn't. So
you don't have the best of luck meeting people that you know from Facebook.
It's probably better I just stay online and stay home.
Yeah, there are people that think that about me, that I'm some kind of nut job. Go figure. Well,
maybe one day, maybe in June.
Or are you thinking about going to MacStock?
I would love to get there. I would definitely love to go.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
I need to get wife permission on that one, so I would love to do it.
Well, probably before too much longer now that we're in the new year, I may try to get Mike on, who is the, besides running the For Mac Eyes Only podcast, is the main honcho for MacStock. He and Barry Falk created both the MacStock conference and the after show or after conference party that Barry actually hosted at his house the first year. And between like this blinding thunderstorm that came in the middle of it, and just the sheer mass of nerds all compacted around his house. I'm pretty sure his wife was like, okay, yeah, we're not doing this again.
Get out.
Get out.
Yeah, well, I mean, if we could move it closer to the East Coast one year, that'd be good. I'm not saying I can't host it, but I wouldn't mind it being closer.
I would love to do it in like Florida.
The
problem is you have to have the facilities, and you have to have either a hotel that's associated with those facilities, or a lot of hotels relatively close, with it also being like a major travel hub. Just because if you could do it anywhere, you could do it in Boise, Idaho, but who would go? And that's it's not a slam against Boise, Idaho, but Boise, Idaho is not the easiest place in the world to get to.
New York.
Yeah,
New York City.
Well, see, the problem with New York though is that it's so freaking expensive.
It's expensive.
It's the same kind of thing that we ran into with the Macworld Expo out in San Francisco. Right. It had everything that it had. Great facilities. It was a major travel hub, lots of hotels, but it was so expensive to go and stay there, any place close to where the Moscone Center was. And there were parts of that area that were literally practically a war zone. That it was difficult to keep getting people out there, at least in the kind of numbers that was required to keep the Macworld Expo going.
That's where I went that's where I went to the WWDC, and it was my first time out there. And you're right, it was like getting from the hotel to the Moscone Center.
Where did you stay at?
I would have to look it back up. It was in between the two places they were having it. So it was between the Moscone Center, and then there was the other place.
You talking about the last WWDC, the one that just happened? Because that was that was near Apple's new headquarters, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Or was it the one before that?
Yeah, they had it to Steve. No, it was 2017. So I think it was the last. It was the last one.
Panama City. Yeah, let's do that during spring break. That's a great idea.
Take us down to Panama City.
I actually almost wrecked my father's car in Destin, Florida, which is in the Panhandle there. And I was only, how old was I? I was 14 years old. I didn't even have a driver's license. It's a whole thing. It's a whole thing. My father didn't have a kind word to say to me for probably 6 months, and I was his favorite son. I was my brothers and sisters. I was my parents' last child. My brothers and sisters used to call me the Crown Prince because my parents doted on me so much. Oh,
must be nice.
Yeah, I don't know if my brother Larry is still on. He was on earlier.
I don't think anybody's still on. I think
no. We got like 9 people are still watching.
I don't know why.
Well, because this is fascinating. This isn't just about talking about Apple stuff, man. This is like real life. This is the way things are. Yeah.
If somebody could remind me what the other conference was, that'd be great too.
Which other conference?
The WWDC, the other building, because now it's driving me crazy.
Well, I mean, you had because there's like 3 or 4 Moscone buildings that are right there. Oh no, there was the theater, wasn't it? There's like some big theater that they.
It was, yeah, they rented it out or something like that. It was huge.
I can't remember.
I figured out locations. Let's ask Google.
But the oh God, now I went to either 2 or 3 New York Macworld Expos, and that was it was the last couple just before they made that disastrous decision to move it to Boston again. So I was like at the last 2 or 3 there in New York, and then once I joined my Mac and got more involved with the stuff going on there, we probably in 2007, the year they introduced the iPhone, we probably had one of the biggest contingents of press out there. I think I mean, Tim could probably tell us, but we had like over 10 people out there covering it. And this was everybody was doing this on their own dime.
Yeah. So Bill Graham, it was a Bill Graham Civic Auditorium is where it was. So my hotel,
and that wasn't last year, that was the year before.
That was 2016. That's the year I went, and my hotel was in between. So if I walked to one of them, it was a nice, very nice walk. If I walked to the other one, it was like you had I was stepping over people on the streets and drug paraphernalia, and it was crazy. Yeah, it was.
Oh, nice. Yeah, we are talking about San Francisco. Well, I went to the last 7 Macworld Expos out there, and I didn't stay at the same hotel anytime. I was always at different hotels. There's actually, if you look up Tim Robertson's videos on YouTube, the 2007 one, my brother Larry and I were sharing a room, and Tim was like one floor up at the Holiday Inn. And he started filming from his room and then came down to our room. And I don't want to say what happened, but it was really, really funny what he did. And I don't know, just check that out over at YouTube. It was from the 2007 Macworld Expo. But did you have the ponytail and all? Yes. Well, okay. When I first opened up the door to let Tim in, I didn't have my hair back in a ponytail, and it was like just all cascading down my shoulders behind my back. So, yeah, I'm kind of trying to grow it back out right now. But shit, I mean, I'm bald.
Hey, holy shit, you really are.
Yeah, you can see it.
Yeah, kind of nice. Yeah, I see it. Yeah. So I'm just trying to grow. Yeah, I'm trying to grow some hair in my bald spot right here.
Yeah, you know what, dude? You've got hair on top of your head.
Well, right on top.
I don't. I really don't.
From where you're standing, if you were looking down on me, you would see some problems going on there. So I just gotta hang around short people.
I would take that much hair. I would these days. Yeah.
I don't know. There's something bad about a bald spot. It's like it's bad. I'd rather have like no hair than the bald spot.
Really?
Yeah, I think
really?
So. I don't know. Well, I'll try it out for a day and see how I like it.
Yeah. Go get one of those razors and just see how that makes you feel.
I've done that.
How was it?
All right.
You got to go. I got to go too. I got to get this thing into YouTube. All right, man. Yep. Everyone who's watching, thanks again for joining us tonight. I don't know how much of this after show stuff will be. What I ought to do is use this after show stuff and put that like on Patreon or something. Try to get people to donate. Anyway,
they might pay. We might have to pay them to take it. All right. I'll catch you.
All right, okay. Take it easy, man.
All right. Bye.
Bye.